We are going to be talking about spirit guides today. It's one of my favorite subjects. However, as you may have noticed from the description, we're going to be talking a little differently about spirit guides than what is often discussed or what is mostly out there. Let's dive into these pesky spirit guides of ours. I would love to get a sense from the room of what your experiences are with spirit guides. Just maybe a few people can chat about what you know about your spirit guides, what you think about your spirit guides, what your relationship is like with your spirit guides. Yes, please, Kim.
I don't think I actually know necessarily, like any ones that are with me all the time. I don't necessarily know what their names are or genders or anything. Sometimes different, like ascended masters or something I can tell. I have sort of self-ascribed spirit animals. But I know I have lots of guides.
Okay.
And sometimes in healings I see the most recurrent that I actually see is like they're beings of light, but they're not actually like human beings.
Right. Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yes.
Years ago I went to a psychic lady in Edmonton when I was very young, many years ago. And my grandpa and grandmother were still alive. And she told me my spirit guide, her name was still Loretta Dundaris. Never heard the name before my whole life. So
what a great name.
My grandma and grandpa lived 2 doors down from us. And I was their go-to person, go to the store to get stuff. So I went over there and my grandfather said to me, Darlene, what did you do today? I said, Grandpa, I went to the psychic. He said, oh, what'd she tell you? And I said, she told me I had a spirit guide. Her name was still Loretta Dundaris. And he just fainted. He said, that was my mother's maiden name. I never knew that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
and
amazing.
She told me she was all dressed in white gold lace. It was very, very old. And yeah, no teeth.
Gee, that's pretty specific.
Like a very old Italian lady, right? I mean,
yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so I think she's somewhere around. She's not working very hard at the moment. See if I could buy one.
Oh, we're going to talk about why she might not be working very hard at the moment. How about one more person who would like to share? Yes, Wes.
I am in almost constant contact with a number of spirit guides. I think of them as parts of my own soul as well as entities that are distinct from mine. And I can also reach out when I need to and receive guidance from whatever. Often they are not clearly identified, but sometimes they are. And I know there are some that are have a specific role in my life, and all I have to do is say, I need something from you.
Right.
They include what people or souls that used to be incarnated as human beings, as well as entities that are star entities, for example. But they're very powerful and very important.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we've heard 3 different kinds of relationships already that people have with their spirit guides. Interestingly, one of the major reasons that somebody would come to see me in regards to spirit guides is because they don't think they have any spirit guides, or they can't hear their spirit guides, and they want to know how they can better hear their spirit guides, and they would like me to tell them who their spirit guides are. I'm always going to throw it back at them. I want them to tell me who their spirit guides are, because my goal is to empower my clients and my students to know what they know. And you know yourselves better than anybody else on the planet does, and you sure as hell know yourself better than I know you. If I were to tell you who your spirit guide was, it might land for you in the same way that it landed for you. It's Deborah, right? Darlene, or Bertha, or Mercedes. It might land for you, or it might not, or you might try to make it fit because somebody to whom you've given a certain amount of authority to over your own knowing has told you what their experience is of it, and so you'll try to make that your own. But what I would rather do for my clients is to show them the ways that they can connect with their spirit guides, and also take the pressure off of themselves that they may be putting on themselves because they've heard that we all have spirit guides. Our spirit guides are always there for us, and our spirit guides are always talking to us, and all we have to do is just say, hi, I'd like to talk to you. but they're not having that experience that they're hearing that everybody else is having. So rather than my telling them that there's a fellow standing behind them who's wearing white robes and looks like he might be a Greek philosopher, I want them to have the sense and knowing for themselves. And even before I would take them into that knowing, I want to remind them of something really, really important. That they are already the wisest version of themselves. And that the first place I want to encourage them to go when they have questions about their life path, their life purpose, about whether to have chicken or beef for dinner, whatever the question is, I want them to go to their highest self first. Because it's my personal belief that while we all do have energy beings who help us along this trek, we're never alone in any of this. It's not our spirit guide or angel or avatar or energy being or animal spirit's job to answer all of our questions and do everything for us. They don't show up with a silver platter or a crystal ball. They're not here to take away our own ability to make wise choices for ourselves. They already know everything that we know. That's why they're so well fitted for us. That's why one person's spirit guide isn't going to be somebody else's spirit guide. Because we have an agreement, we've had a conversation with them before we arrived here. And in that conversation, I believe that we who've decided to come back into the human realm have said to our spirit guide, please, hands off for as long as possible. Let me have my own experience of the life events that I've called into this lifetime and of the choices that are mine to make. Now, I think we also do a very good job of forgetting that we had that conversation with our spirit guides or anybody else outside of ourselves for that matter. Because if you look around at our culture and you look around at the expectations that we often have, it is that we don't know and we need to ask and check in with everybody else around us. Now that may not apply for everybody in this room, but I know that it applies for a lot of people wandering around the streets, where instead of being very sure about what they want and they need for themselves, they've lost touch with that surety and instead have learned to ask everybody else's opinion, everybody else's ideas about what they should be doing with their lives, including their spirit guides. And when a client comes to me and says, I'm not hearing my spirit guide, I keep asking the same question over and over again and I'm not getting an answer, my first hint is that this is a person who's very good at asking everybody else what they should do and doubting what their own truth is. I want to talk to you about what I call the 3 levels of intuitive knowing or intuitive awareness. And the first level of intuitive knowing is you. It is that wise self that I just mentioned. It is that you already have at your disposal, in your own being and your own knowing, at the physical, energetic, emotional, and spiritual levels, all housed up here in your 8th chakra, your soul chakra, or your Akashic records, or your universal library, whatever you want to call it, every solution to every situation, every experience, every question you have ever had in any lifetime, past, present, and future. It's your knowing. This is your story. You've written all of them for every lifetime. And if it's true that we have access to all time, that all time is simultaneous, then this means that you also have access to all of the future experiences and questions that you might have, and that you have the solution to all of those. This is why I'm saying that that first place that I want you to go to is your own amazing intelligence, your own amazing wisdom. This is not your first rodeo. Everybody in the room has been here before. You have had other lifetimes. The reason you have so many different lifetimes is so that you can accumulate this beautiful library, this beautiful record of experience, so that when you come back into this human form, you have everything that you need to navigate this life. And I know that that can sometimes sound scary, because it is very reassuring to know that we have somebody that we can go to when we are confused, when we are doubting, when we don't know, legitimately don't know what the right route is for us. And we do have that. We do. However, those beautiful spirit guides, they know how much you know. They're going to show up when you have moved off the path that you wrote for yourself, when you have forgotten what it was that you came here to do, when your free will and your free choices have taken you in a direction that may be contrary to the themes that you placed into this lifetime. Those things that you said, I want to learn, I want to heal, I want to do while I'm here this time around. When you have forgotten that, that's when, in my experience, these beautiful spirit guides will show up for us. And so if you are calling out to them, if you are asking the same question over and over again, if you're stuck and you're saying, where are you? Why can't you help me find my answer? And you're not hearing them, it's because they're actually not talking to you. And they're not talking to you because you asked them not to. Because they know you know the answer. You know exactly what you need to do. You just haven't said yes to it yet. Right? And there's lots of reasons why we don't say yes to a thing that we know we need to do. I mean, let's take a relationship, for example. And you know that the life force is gone from that relationship. You know that the two of you would be better served to move in separate directions, invite new people into your lives, whatever the reasons are. You know this, and you've known this for 20 years. But you're still in the relationship. And you're still asking for guidance. But you know what you need to do. Why would your spirit guide tell you what you need to do if you haven't already been listening to your wise self for 20 years? I look at it similar to the relationship between a therapist and their client, or you and your best friend. When that best friend comes to you for the umpteenth time with the same complaint, and you have given them, to the best of your ability, every possible solution, every possible bit of guidance from your own experience, and they haven't listened to any of it, and they haven't put any of it into practice, and they come back to you again and they say, I just don't know, I think maybe I should stay with him because I think I really love him. And you're going, oh my God, what? I'm done. I can't do this anymore. You've got to make up your own mind. The same thing happens in the therapist-client relationship. As sacred as that is, at a certain point, if your client is not listening, is not making the changes that they say they want to make, at a certain point, there is no more help that you can offer them. Perhaps somebody else can come in and give them a different perspective on it. But as a therapist, it's your job to recognize that and say, I think here is a better place for you to be. I think this is what our spirit guides do to us as well. And they do it for us. Because we agreed to come here to be a part of this experience, to make those hard choices, to have those joyful times. We came here to be human. And that means fully immersing ourselves. It's like an intensive course in emotions and decision-making and free will. And at no point is it your spirit guide's job to take that free will away from you. So the second level of intuitive knowing and awareness are our spirit guides. This is the point we get to where we've just been doubting our own high wisdom so much, or we feel like the situation and circumstance is so much bigger than we are, that those energy beings are allowed to come in and be that little tiny voice in our head. But they don't often yell at us, do they? Who's had the experience of hearing that loud voice in your head that you know isn't your own, that usually shows up when you need to really pay attention? Yeah. But most of the time...
We don't
also happens when, I don't know, not necessarily for a serious message,
Mm-hmm.
like out of the blue,
Yeah.
like a sentence.
Okay.
Oh my God, this is how it's going to be, and then blah, it's gone, and nothing anymore after that.
That's been your experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what did you do with that experience?
I didn't have anything to do. It's when I met my first husband.
Mm-hmm.
I had this very clear, you're going to be with this person for 25 years. I was 26.
So you pushed the envelope a little bit. Yeah. Well, yes, when they speak to us, it doesn't have to be, don't go down that dark alley. It can be this person. Pay attention right here, right now. This is the thing that you said I want to be made aware of, right? Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a dire and desperate circumstance.
It was such a certainty.
Mm-hmm.
It really struck me. And I remembered only when he died,
Yes.
which was 26 years.
Mm.
But really close. And, God, I have this. I knew this already.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and why would we get those kinds of messages or warnings from on high, from those energy beings? I mean, what would be the reason to know that you're only going to be with somebody for 25 years? How is that helpful? How could that be helpful? But perhaps in retrospect, to preparation, to recognize this is the time that we have together, and whatever that looks like, let's make the most of it. Somewhere along the way, you may have had a conversation with your guides to say, I'll need to know that piece of information. It will be helpful after the fact. And maybe there's a bigger understanding that is still yet to come around the importance of that message and why it showed up for you. Yeah. Well, what do you think happens, though, if we ignore the messages that we get that we feel really strongly are coming from not our wise self, but from those external sources? What happens if we keep ignoring those messages to move, change jobs, leave that relationship, marry that person, take that chance?
Keep reoccurring, like you keep, the pattern keeps being there, only it gets worse each time.
Yes.
Speaking for my own perhaps.
Who's had that experience in their life of feeling like just this skin is not working for me anymore?
Or my Botox.
Maybe it's spiritual Botox. It's a spiritual facelift.
For me, the answer to that question is, it's not like Siri. It's like if you miss the turn she tells you to take, she doesn't say recalculating and tell you again. Eventually, it just stops.
Right.
And for me, I know that when I don't take that advice and I'm going somewhere wrong, I get nauseated. It's kind of like an existential and sometimes a physical nausea.
Yes. There are signs, symbols, and synchronicities that occur for us that I believe come from an external source through our bodies that are our early warning system, if you will, that we're not paying attention. Those red flags that show up, those repeated experiences that and you think, why does this keep happening to me? Right? What's going on here? I would invite you to take that questioning one step further. What am I not hearing? What am I not listening to? What am I not paying attention to? Why do I have that ulcer? Why do I have that upset stomach? What's going on with that? How is this showing up in my body that I'm no longer following my true heart and my true path and the things that I know are in my highest good? That's when we move into the third level of intuitive knowing. That's when all those beautiful energy beings that are around you, the ones that maybe are your mainstay, the 3 or 4 that you've got for your whole life, and then the others that come in and help as you need them to, that's when they all sit around a table just like this, and they go, okay, we're talking about Bertha right now, who just changed her name because she was told to because of numerology. I'm going to put you on the hot seat. But really, she doesn't like the name Bertha. That's not the energy that she wants to be in. She's not hearing us. She's not listening to us. She's not listening to her higher self. We need an intervention. That's when what I call the big guns are invited in. This is the universe, or God, Goddess, or Yahweh, or whoever is your divine connection to that larger energy, that bigger purpose energy. These are when the wake-up calls happen. Those great, big, life-changing, life-altering events that make us stop, literally stop in our tracks. And if we're brave enough and courageous enough to reassess, because of the experiences that we've had, how it is that we're showing up in the world. And these are often the times where we pray most fervently for those spirit guides to show up, and it's most often the time when they can't. Because they know we need to do this. We need to go through this. It's not that they've abandoned us in these moments of wake-up calls. It's that they're standing here in the boardroom and they're watching on the big screen and they're going, okay, oh, there's the car accident. Oh, all right, let's see what happens now. Because they have to step out of the way in order for you to have that experience that you've called into your life story when you get to that moment along the path where you realize, I need to come back. I need to course correct. And these experiences don't have to be negative necessarily, as we may call them that, quote unquote negative. They could be incredible opportunities that show up, and you have to also be brave and courageous enough to sign that book deal, go on Oprah, take that world tour, whatever it's going to be. But you're the one who's going to have to navigate that. It's those moments that push you out of your comfort zone and really give you the opportunity to call on everything that you already know. How many people in the room have had wake-up calls? Big ones, yeah. There can be a series of little ones. It's sort of like an earthquake, right, or a volcanic eruption. There can be smaller tremors along the way. And you've got opportunity to say, okay, I get it. I don't need to have the huge eruption. But at some point in our lives, there's usually something that shows up that gives us a chance to prove to ourselves what we're made of, who we are, why we came here, and what we're here to do, how we're here to be of service. And what I've noticed from my clients and my students and my own personal experience is that we have an inexhaustible amount of strength and courage to face these experiences in our lives and to know that we can, that this too will pass, and that when it does, we will be better people for it. We'll have a better relationship with ourselves and the people around us, and a better relationship with these beautiful spirit guides that are here for us. Not here for us 24/7. Here for us when they know we need them, not when we think that we need them. So sometimes, if you're not hearing your spirit guides, it could be because they're not actually talking to you. They know what you know. They know what you're capable of. And they know you need an opportunity to do it. I think of it like the relationship between a parent and a child. Right? At a certain point, the parent has to stand back and say, go, go do. I'm here. You can come home when you need to. You can pick up the phone. But I've given you everything that you need. And I trust you to go out in the world and follow your path and do what you need to do. Out of curiosity, have there been moments in your life, times in your life, where you feel like you've been asking and it's just been absolutely quiet? There's crickets in the room. What was that like for you?
That's what's happening now.
Okay.
And it's really frustrating because
Okay.
I've left the man.
Okay.
I started the new life. I feel like I'm doing everything possible. I'm connecting. I'm sitting in a group circle.
Yeah.
I'm meditating. Could be again. And like nothing. Zero. And I feel like I need guidance.
What if you're already doing everything right?
Doesn't feel at all.
What do you think it would feel like if you were doing everything right now? What is the expectation you have of that?
I feel like my life would flow instead of being this. It's just not.
And yet you've just shared that you left the relationship that was no longer for your highest good. You're on a new path. You're doing all this exploration to find out who you are. what part of that isn't the right thing to be doing? You're still perhaps in the wake-up call. There are still pieces of the story for you to know more about as you go through each of these experiences. You know, if there's financial things going on, there's an opportunity for you to look at what are your financial beliefs? What is your relationship with finances and money? How does that tie into self-worth? What is the work that you could be doing around understanding those parts of your story with the bigger picture belief that you've called this in for a reason? Because you can, at this time in your life, do this work. Otherwise, it wouldn't be showing up for you right now. Right? And same with the relationships. What if right now this is the most important and best time for you to work on and heal the relationship you have with yourself before inviting the energy of somebody else to come in? And while it may be triggering feelings of loneliness or unworthiness, what if these are the places you could do a deep dive and look at what have you brought into this lifetime to work on, to heal, to grow and learn from? What if that is the message? What if the silence is the message? Right? As I've been doing my work and my research and my teachings over the years, and as I've brought together this Confident Healer course, one of the areas that we study is spirit guides and the meaning of this in our lives and how we can help our clients with this when the students go out into the world. We look at those signs, symbols, and synchronicities, the ways in which spirit speaks to us. We each have our individual language with the energies that are around us, and we each have our individual language with our own bodies. And the beautiful thing about these bodies of ours is that they will never lie to us. When you can learn or relearn to trust your body as being the most sacred of sacred, the most holy of holies, this is this beautiful container that is guiding you and taking you through this life's journey. When you can learn what the language is of your body, it can become easier to understand the signs, symbolisms, and synchronicities that are being given to you as part of that communication system that you have with your spirit guides, your higher self, your own wise self. You can meditate until the cows come home, until you're blue in the face. You can go on every dating site that exists out there in an effort to create a relationship. But if the timing is not yet right for that, you're hitting your head against a brick wall. And your spirit guides, in my opinion and experience, are going to be standing over here in the corner going, oh, that's got to hurt. We've given her all the tools. She has all the knowing. It's all in here. It's in your heart. It's in that beautiful 8th chakra, that soul chakra. It's in every other life experience that you have, that you've brought into this lifetime. You have all those answers to all those questions. And if you're unable to see the answers in the moment, don't make yourself wrong about that. It may not be something you aren't doing well enough or good enough. What if it's that the answers aren't ready for you yet? There's other things that need to happen first before those solutions show up for you. And when we say that hindsight is 20/20, it's so true in that once we're on the other side of one of these big wake-up calls or big transitions in our lives, it's much easier for us to see, oh, right, that's why that, and that had to happen, was so that I could be right here in this moment for this event to occur for me. When we're in it, it can be really, really challenging to see what those solutions are because we have a tendency to do this, right? We go into panic mode, we go into survival mode, we look at what's right in front of us, and we get panicky that somehow we're missing something. We're missing a key step. There's a secret formula that everybody else has and we don't have it. And if we could just find the right way to ask, our spirit guides would give us that information. What I want to suggest to you is that the silence might be the message. That our guides and even our own higher self don't always speak to us in ways that make immediate sense to us. The synchronicities are those events that line up, that flow from one another, that usually occur when you say yes to something. And the universe goes, yay! Okay, let's put everything in place for her. right? The signs are things like hearing the same word 3 times in a row or more. The symbols can be those beautiful geometric shapes that show up for us, or items that show up for us, feathers, hearts. For example, hearts are what showed up for me. That's what this whole box set with the oracle cards is based on, is the heart's journey. As I was transitioning out of my marriage of 23 years and everything that that entails with 2 small children and my blinders that had been like this for 23 years, I said to the universe, please just give me a sign, a symbol, anything that when I see it, I'll know that I'm on the right track, even if I don't know what that track looks like. And even if I can't see around the bend what it's going to be, what the end result is going to be. Show me something that when I see it, I will simply trust that everything is unfolding as it should and in my highest good. And I immediately started seeing these beautiful hearts. These are the hearts that I found in nature as I was asking these same questions that you're asking. Where my finances were in ruins, we were facing bankruptcy for the umpteenth time. We'd remortgaged the house 4 times at that point, drowning in debt, stuck in patterns of behavior and relationship with one another that hadn't grown or changed in 20 years, and a lot of other things that were too hard to ignore, right? And that was part of my wake-up call. That was one of the tremors. Then there was a car accident. That was part of the tremoring that was going on, some fissures opening up in the ground. And then a man came into my life, back into my life. And that was the thing I couldn't ignore. That was my huge wake-up call, was, wow, what do I want in relationship? How do I want to be seen? How do I want to be treated? How do I want to receive love? Everything else I could ignore, everything else I could completely disregard, including the voices of my spirit guides going, hey! I'm like, nope, can't hear you. Don't want to, no. And these symbols came to me as that reminder to follow my heart above all other voices. So what if instead of asking for a message and expect that it's going to be blazoned across the sky, here's what you must do, Marilyn, you could say, show me my guidance. Because they can't give it to you on a silver platter. They just can't. It's not how the job description works, because we have to come to the conclusion on our own. If we don't, it's not going to have the same impact. Right? It's why I would rather that my clients remember who their spirit guides are on their own, and I can help them remember, or remember what their other lifetimes are, or even this lifetime. There's enough that goes on in one lifetime, never mind a dozen more. I want them to have the remembering of it, because then it's theirs. It isn't me giving it to them. And that makes a huge difference. Speaking of symbols, look at what time it is. That's a huge sign for a lot of people. Yeah. It was a huge sign for my mother. She was determined that she was going to die on November 11th at 11. She didn't. She died September 27th, around 11 o'clock though. And now whenever we see 11:11, our personal belief is that she's here. We say, hi, Mom. It's her way of...
Gratitude. I always use a moment of gratitude.
A moment of gratitude, yeah. Yeah. These things that take us out of our day-to-day busyness and give us that moment to connect. Like, oh, there's a heart. I still find them everywhere. Found one yesterday. It's like, there it is. Right, my heart. Take a second, connect to your heart. Create a relationship, first with yourself and your high self, whatever that looks like to you. Then create a relationship with your spirit guides or energy beings or deceased loved ones or whoever it is that's hanging around you. Coming from that place of gratitude and friendship, instead of putting them on a pedestal of knowing more than you know about your own journey. Right? Because they're not here to be better than you, and they're not here to know more than you. They're here to help you. They're just a little further along that spiritual path of awareness. That's what allows them the opportunity to have this arrangement with us. But they're still learning as well as we are. And if we disempower ourselves by giving away our authority to spirit guides, to God, to the priests or priestesses, to anything that is outside of ourselves, then we do ourselves a huge disservice. Whereas if we choose to work with these important people in our lives, these important energies in our lives, from a place of mentorship, guidance, then I believe we have a much healthier relationship with these energies than a lot of what is described out in the metaphysical circles and worlds around our expectation of spirit guides. I did a Google search, went to Grandma Google and said, okay, spirit guides, just curious what's going on out there in the internet. And let's see, the number was, where is it? I wrote it down. 10,800,000,000 hits in 0.04 seconds. So there's a lot of people in the world seeking confirmation that they're not alone. That's what that says to me. That our desire to know that there's somebody standing right here all the time to help us whenever we need it is more important to us than our need or desire to create authority within ourselves. Right? You have all the answers, Marilyn. You really do. And there are people who can help you to see what those answers are, to help you have that aha moment of, oh, that's what I knew all along. Don't give that away. And you'll find a very different relationship with your spirit guides. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions or comments at this point? Yes, Wes?
I have a little story that I think is relevant to Marilyn's situation, because when you spoke, I really felt I'm not quite sure whether it was a pang or something, but a few years ago I decided that I was going to do my 4th vision quest. And I chose to do it inside a sweat lodge, which meant 4 days in darkness, and twice a day hot rocks brought into the lodge. And I think I was getting cocky before I went in, because I thought, this isn't going to be all that difficult. I'm going to ask for some guidance and that sort of thing. What I wasn't expecting was that when the door was closed on me, I was absolutely alone in a way that I don't think I've ever been. I tried to reach out energetically and spiritually to the birds and the plants and the other human beings around me. I couldn't. And it took a while before I was able to get over the shock of that. And then eventually, and some of this is in retrospect after the whole event was done, I realized that the cockiness was about knowing or thinking that I could contact my spirit guides any other time. They'd always be there. And they said, not today, not this time. This time you were going to be absolutely alone. And I was for 4 days like that. For me, the understanding that I got from it was that this was my time to really look inside myself at the number one thing that Megan mentioned, which was my own wisdom, my own intuition, my own knowing. And when I heard you speak, I thought, okay, it's Marilyn's turn. So, just be with it.
Yeah.
That my sense is that that's your journey as it was mine.
Yeah. Thank you, Wes. Yeah.
I also have a comment.
Yes.
Just because I have more years wisdom, I sense that we're given the opportunity to linger in painful situations, whether it's emptiness or hardship, because time isn't so, it doesn't matter on the other side. So it is the experience of it and the coming through that seems to matter.
Yes.
The other was, thanks for the card, that was today's answer.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, just
Beautiful.
amazing.
Yeah.
You have a quandary and something appears, but we tend to go, oh, that's solved,
Yeah.
But
That's
this one
right.
was bigger than that.
That's
So
right.
thank you for that.
You're very welcome. And I would encourage you to look at the cards that you have pulled. They're not by accident that those cards came to you today for whatever reason.
I didn't take the one that came.
I don't blame you.
Which was the one? It was heartache. Well, I would encourage you to read the channeled message on heartache and then go into the guidebook and read the story that goes with that card. I've worked with oracle cards since I was about 17 and found my first pouch of rune stones, and then started working with oracle cards and tarot from there. And it's a tool that I use with my clients all the time. My students learn, they receive a copy of this and they learn how to work with these. They're such beautiful meditation tools, such beautiful guidance tools. They're not going to tell you what to do. If anyone tells you that an oracle card or tarot is telling you what to do, then I would encourage you to just leave that relationship. Because no one gets to tell you what to do. That's what this whole conversation that we're having is about, right? You get to decide. The oracle cards provide a beautiful guidance or a confirmation or a reminder or just something to contemplate. And in the rare instance, if you choose an oracle card and you're looking at it thinking, this is not, has nothing to do with me whatsoever, two things could be happening. Denial, or it's meant for somebody else and you are to be the messenger. The first person who comes into your mind is the person who is going to be best served by that message that's on that oracle card. Yes?
Well, it's interesting just that when you said you're meant to be maybe it's not meant to be for you. The person who was doing the treatment, afterwards at the end said that she could feel somebody behind her with like a white feather, like cleaning around her neck and head and shoulders.
Beautiful.
I just had this total intuitive knowing and sense that it was actually Glenna. It was almost like this healing that I won was as much for her
Yes, yes, for the
as
practitioner.
it was for me.
Yes.
Like it almost was more impactful for her.
Yes.
Which I thought, I've never had that experience before. I thought that was super cool.
Very cool, very cool. I have this vision of, we get together with friends and there's us in our bodies and embodying our life and who we are. And then there's this whole gang behind us and behind the person that we're talking to. And they are so excited to see each other. Like more excited than we are to see one another. They're like, hey, how's it going? Awesome, let's chat. And things come through us to each other that is divinely guided by the conversations that these energy beings or spirit guides are having with one another, enabling us to have these really amazing connections with each other because of who we are. Yes?
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Can it be a physical thing? Because I have had experiences with cold wind and a message, and it's usually an emergency situation, and I was active and I was proven right.
Yeah?
But can it be like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It can be an external force upon ourselves. That's been my experience, a push or a shove or a feeling of cold or hot or wind. It can be the things that we see around us, the pennies, the feathers, those significant symbols for us. And it can be the way that our body reacts. I remember I was talking about how we have this amazing body language. And I don't just mean the way that I can look at you and if you're looking up, I'll know you're thinking. I mean the way that our body speaks to us through the shivers or the goosebumps, which I always get, or that gut feeling or the butterflies or whatever it happens to be. And you can choose to dismiss these experiences as just coincidence. You can look to the scientific reason for the experiences. You know, we know physiologically a great deal about our bodies at this point, not everything by far, but we know a few things about how the body works. And you can add another layer to that, which is, I wonder if that was Aunt Margaret, right? That song just came on the radio and Grandma used to love humming the Beach Boys. Hi Grandma. Right? It can just be that kind of connection, that kind of visitation, that reminder that we're not alone, that reminder that there is more going on than just what we see in front of us. And with free will, we can also just decide it is only what is going on in front of us. That's our right as well. That's our will as well.
It's funny you should mention being pushed.
Yes. You were pushed.
I was pushed and I thought, and I didn't move. I could just feel that. And I thought, what the heck? Because if you're not used to it, you clearly, you don't know what's going on.
That's true. And that doubt can come in, or that inexperience of that experience, and you not quite know what it is. Mind you, if it stays with you, then I would suggest that it has significance. Because sometimes it is just the wind, right? Sometimes the funny noise in the kitchen is just the refrigerator. The solenoid coils need to be changed. Sometimes it's just the muffler rattling. And it could also be that Aunt Margaret is trying to get your attention because the fridge is the only thing that you're going to be paying attention to, And that is actually her knocking and making that happen. Plus, you need to get your fridge repaired, and that's what she's trying to tell you. You need to get your fridge repaired because it's almost Thanksgiving dinner and you don't want to lose the turkey. You were going to say something, yes?
Do you think the spirits communicate through electric appliances, or is it us that are doing that?
That's a great question. And where I would encourage everybody to start with is, what is the most rational explanation for something that's occurring around you? Like, is the toaster shorting out? Maybe it's an old toaster. Start there. When you are unable to find one of those grounded, rational explanations, then I suggest open your mind to what else it could be. Yes, so yes, he may have been upset. He may not have liked the way in which he went. He may have been trying to get your attention in a way that you would recognize, that you would pay attention to. You know, a soft breeze on the cheek wasn't going to be enough necessarily. It had to be indisputably some kind of a result of his agitation or simply his efforts to get a hold of you. It isn't easy, in my experience, for somebody who's in a non-corporeal form to manipulate the physical world. This is a very heavy, dense place that we're in. So my personal experience is that, and my belief is that anything that's non-corporeal is going to work with what it can affect most easily. And it has been documented over and over and over again that electrical systems are one of the ways in which spirits, ghosts, deceased loved ones get our attention. I wonder what they did before we had electricity. Yeah, smells. Mm-hmm. Yeah, cigar or perfume, or the way somebody smelled, or they're cooking, or the candles start to flicker madly and there's no breeze.
Or it comes a nice warm color of the light.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, these are the signs, and you know what? They're going to be personal for you. You could read 100 books on poltergeist and manifestation of spirit, and never have one of those experiences that's being described in those books. And if you get caught up in it needing to look like what it says in the other books, you're going to be not paying attention to how it's showing up for you. So when did they cease? I'm curious.
After his memorial.
Yeah, and that's a very common experience that people have. Once the memorial is done and the person who's passed away knows that everybody's okay, then they can move on. There's another area of this that I'd like us to have a quick look at before we totally open up the floor to conversation and questions. Has it ever occurred to you that in as much as you have energy beings or spirit guides around you who are helping you in this lifetime, that you have also been a spirit guide to somebody else?
Yes.
Has that ever crossed your mind?
One of the girl I know wanted to see me when I was in Japan. She's from Australia, so it just happened to be just one day we could go because I was just arrived and she's leaving next day to Australia. And then we are going into the hotel I booked. I told her where I'm going. Before we get there, it's just a funny thing, in the bus stop, she's there. And we just look at each other. And that takes quite a while to write. And then I'm helping her, but at the same time, like Kim said, she's just helping me and giving me all the confidence I need. And then she is feeling the energy, the one I'm giving her. It was interesting because we are helping, but also other one is, I think, and then when I'm looking at you, don't annoy me, but I feel she's coming through you.
Oh.
Because it's just expression and everything. It's interesting. Yeah. Very interesting.
So that, yes, it could very well be that her energy has found us today and is playing with my energy, and I don't feel anything malevolent or anything else going on, so obviously for me this is happening over here somewhere, and our energies are playing with one another.
I feel it moving from her.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's Interesting.
Beautiful. Beautiful. There are so many different ways for energy to move through us and around us. And for us to stay grounded in this day-to-day life that we've chosen to be in, it's important that we have a focus, a point of focus. And that's usually our relationships, our jobs, our children, getting food on the table, paying the rent, paying the mortgage. We have to stay grounded in that. If we were to spend all of our time in all of these other conversations that are going on around us, I pretty much imagine we'd never get out of bed in the morning. It's why we have these blocks, right? And don't even think of them as blocks, think of them as containers. And so that every once in a while we might get a glimpse of a conversation with a spirit guide or a deceased loved one, or some other realm or dimension of understanding comes through us, either for us or for somebody else. However, we're not meant to maintain that because we've chosen to come here and be physical and have all the physical experiences. I believe that we get to have breaks from this, though. When we've decided we're going to take the human journey, and I have a whole theory around that I'd love to talk about it afterwards if anybody's interested to hear it. When we decide that we're going to become a human being and we're going to live all these lifetimes, we do get to take breaks. And what we get to do in those breaks is pretty much anything that we want to, in conversation with those who are helping us along the way. And one of those activities is to be spirit guide for somebody else. Because these spirit guides are these energies that are with us. They have to know what it's like to be human. Right? They do have to get what it's like to get stuck in a pattern, to get held up in a belief. They have to know what that is so that they can talk to us about it, so they can help us with it. If they were so far advanced from this experience, they would not be able to relate to us. And then they wouldn't be able to be helpful for us. And that's what they are agreeing to do. I have a meditation, I believe it's on the YouTube channel, where I take people through into when you have been a spirit guide for somebody else. And the first time I had this experience, I was not expecting anything. I had never heard about this idea either. The teacher took us through, and I'm going, well, whatever, nothing's going to happen. Boom. I find myself looking out over a mountaintop. I'm in a Japanese home with the rice paper walls. There's a young boy standing looking out over the valley. He's about 14 when my awareness comes into this experience. And he's having to make a choice in this moment. He either is going to follow the artist path, or he's going to follow the warrior path. And what I was hearing behind me was this clamoring of guidance coming in from all the other energy beings, and myself included, saying, no, the artist path, the artist way. You told us you wanted to take the artist path. But through the experiences that he'd had growing up, he made a different decision, which is his to make. And he went the warrior way instead. And I watched this movie unfold of all of the choices that he made from that moment on. And all of the ways in which the idea of being the artist came through in the way that he chose to be a warrior. But it was still a very different path. And I remember feeling such sadness that was the choice he had made, in the total recognition that it was not my call. There was nothing I could do to change that direction. And we'd have that conversation at the end, but also that he hadn't done anything wrong. He hadn't made a bad choice. He made a choice, and he had his experience of that choice. And this meditation took us right to the end when he passed away in some glorious manner that was akin to how he wanted to go. And I'm standing there, and he comes across the veil, or whatever happens, and he looks at me, and then he looks down, and he smirks, and he looks back up, and he says, I guess I'm going back. It's like, yeah, I guess you are. And then the other experience that I've had with this is, again, I was taking my class through this meditation, and when I do these visualizations, I go through them as well, even as I'm speaking them. And I see this little boy, and he's born, and he grows up, and he loves baseball. I'm going to give you the abridged version because it was the whole life. He loves softball and baseball, and he spends his entire life playing ball and then teaching other people to play ball. And he brings baseball to his community, and he becomes this really well-known aficionado for baseball and for empowering young boys and young men to play ball and all the beautiful things that happen when you're on a team and all of that. And we get to the end of his life, and he's passed away. No, sorry, he hadn't passed away yet. He was being honored. He was being honored for an award. And the stadium was full of all the people, these 3 or 4 generations of boys who had gone through his trainings and friends that he had known his whole life. And this whole stadium was full of all these people here to acknowledge him. And I'm seeing this all from above. And I'm so full of love for this person. And I had almost nothing to do with his life. I was there. I could see it unfolding, but he never needed me. He never called on me. He didn't know I was even there because he was following his path the whole way along. He didn't need any intervention from me. The most amazing part of this was when I realized that he was in a wheelchair. And he'd been in a wheelchair since he was a little boy. But it was never something that mattered. And he still did all the things that he wanted to do. And he still played ball, and he still taught other kids how to play ball. And he lived this amazing life just being of service in the most beautiful way that he knew how. And I came out of that visualization just sobbing. Like, wow. It was so unimportant to him that he was in a wheelchair his whole life that it wasn't even a part of the way anybody saw him. That was his what's the right word to, like, that was his to do. That was his way of being in it. So there were these 2 very different experiences that I was able to go through of what it's like to be these spirit guides for us, how frustrating it is when we're like, no, we had that conversation, you were going to become the artist, and oh, damn, now you're going to go off and kill people. Okay, fine. And the experience of simply being able to sit back and go, wow, what a beautiful life this person got to have. So when you're feeling stuck in your relationship with your spirit guides, I would encourage you to imagine the times that you have been someone else's spirit guide in order to deepen that relationship and understand why it is that they sometimes go quiet, why it is that they trust you implicitly, and how it is that you can be in relationship with them. So I would love to open up the table in the room in the time that we have left. Questions, comments, chatting amongst yourselves, whatever you would like to do now. Yes?
Just one little question.
Sure.
Just on the edge of Megan.
Nice, nicely done.
It's because we covered the subject of guardian angels, inner masters, or spiritual counselors, you could say, on this. Yet we live in a world that is subjugated all kinds of religions, you know, like we have the Bible, the Quran, the Book of the Dead, the whatever else. We have all these instruction manuals in this material world, and all these spiritual guides, you know, where do we fit in all between all this? You know, what's your point of view on this?
I believe that the reason that we choose to come back into human form, into the physical body, from our soul form, is that there are experiences that we can only have while being physical, while being human. That even when we die and we go off to wherever we go and we do our life review or whatever we do, and we have this big picture understanding of what our choices were and how we lived our lives, there are things we cannot heal in our spirit body. There are experiences that we have at the physical level, both emotionally, energetically, and physically, that we can only heal by coming back into the human form. So this is a necessary part of our journey. And so I'll share with you briefly this theory that I have about how this whole thing works. In order to be accepted into the university, the higher education of the human experience, you have to already have achieved an enormous amount of growth at the spirit level before you are welcome into the human journey, because being human is not for the faint of heart. It's a hell of a thing to say, I'm going to be a human being. And I'm going to feel everything, and I'm not going to understand any of it. And I'm going to choose this path. We may spend many lifetimes moving through the levels of the human experience. before we are able to graduate. And I akin it to like university, right? We apply for university, we qualify for university, we are accepted into university or higher education, and then we complete our learning, our training, our degree, and then we graduate and we move on to something else. I feel like this human experience is a part of that. So for the soul's journey, part of the necessity for growth is to come and be human, to be a part of this human experience. It's that saying about how we're spiritual beings having a human experience as opposed to human beings having a spiritual experience. This is the higher education of the spiritual growth.
It almost sounds like our evolution has to follow a certain sequence or hierarchy or something.
It doesn't have to follow a hierarchy at all, or any kind of sequence. This is a way to describe how I've seen it that fits a model of our understanding of education. I'm not limiting it to that, nor am I presuming to know what it looks like. This is the analogy that came to me when I received this understanding as a way to express it to other people. You could look at it like a big circle if you wanted to as well, where there's layers of the circle, and we start in the center as a spark of light or a spark of energy, and we go through these various layers of developing and understanding our energy and our energy systems, and then at a certain point we move into this outer sphere of physical experience. And once we've moved through all of the things we want to experience at the physical level, then we're able to move out of that sphere and off into the ether. It doesn't have to be up and down. And it's not about one person or one energy being better than the other for the experiences that they've had. It's about how we expand our knowledge and experience and awareness. So maybe the circle is a better analogy. And let me be very clear, I don't need to be right about any of this. This is how I've experienced the understanding. It doesn't have to be anybody else's way of experiencing the understanding.
By the sound of you, you've been a spiritual seeker pretty much all of this lifetime.
I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a seeker of the truth all this lifetime.
A seeker of my truth. I wouldn't presume to know what anybody else's truth is. It really is. And if in sharing what my truth is, parts of that land for you and they make sense for you and you have an aha moment or a sense of, oh yeah, me too, I feel like that too, then great. And if nothing I've said makes any sense, doesn't land, you disagree entirely, that is totally and absolutely fine as well. Because I don't believe that there's a right or wrong. I believe that we have our experiences and then we choose to share those experiences and connect with people over them. And some people we're not going to connect with, and that's fine. I don't need 7 billion friends on Facebook. Do you? That's a lot. So it really, for me, it is about what is true for me, what makes sense for me, how it shows up in my life in a way that I can understand and navigate. And when I see the healing that I have seen, the healings that I've seen through the work that I do for the people who have come to work with me, because we're out of that vibration, whatever the reasons are, I know that there's something really important about when we can connect with a way of thinking and being, but not to the exclusion of other ways of thinking and being. Does that make sense? Yeah. That I choose to walk in openness to all ways of being and thinking. And I don't always agree with other people's ways of being and thinking. I can't possibly, and I can't convince anybody of anything either. What I can do is choose to show up as my authentic self in my integrity and share what I know is my truth and let it land where it will land. And beyond that, that's all I can do. Yeah. Then I can go home to my kids and I can go to the rugby game this afternoon and I can make dinner tonight and I can do all the fun, wonderful human things that we choose to do when we come here. I honestly think that this life that we get to lead is so exciting and so amazing. And I had a psychic once say to me, "Good God, woman, you've been back here so many times. What are you thinking? Don't you want to move on?" And haven't you learned? And I thought, I don't think that's how it works. I feel like I love this place. I love the people. I love the energy. I love the beauty of it. I love the geology of this planet. yes, shitty things are happening all over the world. That doesn't change that this is an incredible place to be. And it's one of the places where Sylvia Brown and I go in separate directions. I don't believe that this is hell's armpit. I really don't. Well, that's right. It's your story and your experience and your filters of how you choose to see the world. But at the same time, you can change the way that you're experiencing the world and your life story by changing your relationship to your story.
I remember just a little capsule. I remember a guy I met in Florida one time. He was so matter-of-fact about life and evolution and reincarnation. You know, I asked him, I says, how long have you been over here and all this? He says, no, I've got bodies all over this place. I was like, whoa, you're sure of that? Yeah, he says the Catholic wants us to resurrect our bodies. He says, I'm wondering which one I'm going to pick, you know.
Yes.
But anyway, it was kind of funny, you know, his way of answering.
Well, I think what's important is that he's interpreting what he knows. He's taking his truths and interpreting part of it, and then going on further, expanding what he knows and creating these ideas in his own head.
That's possible.
But it makes everybody else very confused.
Yeah, but he was so
That's okay.
matter-of-fact about it, you know.
I know, it's a belief, it becomes a grounded belief.
Yeah. Well, but that's all we have.
But that's all we have.
Is what we
yes.
believe. And as I said, and to bring it right back to what we were first talking about with this whole idea of your spirit guide being someone that you give your power over to, right? Making them responsible for your choices. All you have is what you believe in. And if you know what your beliefs are, whether they're right or wrong is irrelevant. What is true for you, and there's a caveat to that in my world, which is, and it doesn't harm anyone, then be in your belief, be in your truth. And don't try to convince anybody what that truth is. And make sure that when somebody tries to bring their truth to you, that you're very clear and open to the possibility that they may have something to share with you that makes sense for you, but always coming from that place of, this is what is true for me. And that can change, and it does change, and it should evolve, and that's part of why we keep coming back here, is to have a different experience than the one we may have had the lifetime before, so that we can expand our whole soul's understanding of all the different ways that we can show up in this world or any world, for that matter.
I'd like to share something.
Yes, please.
It's a little off the thing, but in my past, I've lost people that were really close to me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I get really down, I ask them to give me a sign that they're still around and they're still there if I need them. I always have a sign. Right to my husband's name in the back of an old pickup truck. It's all rusted out.
Yeah.
Way up the Campbell River. I mean, story after story I can tell you.
Yeah.
So I think it makes you understand or feel for myself that they're watching us. They are guides.
Yeah.
One of my grandsons were in a terrible car accident right after his mom died.
Mm.
The police said to me, he said, Mrs. Ware, he said, there's no way that these boys could have walked out of that car. He said, there's an angel in the car, and my daughter just died. So I really believe that she was there protecting these kids. So I'm a big believer in past lives, I think. Yes, I do believe in past lives, but I don't think you get to choose for your body when you go. I wish we could.
Choose our bodies?
Yeah, I feel like I want to be Dolly Parton and it's not here.
That's a whole other talk. You'll have to invite me back for the past life talk. But again, it's what you choose to believe. It's what matters to you, and you don't need to convince anybody of what your experiences are, and no one needs to convince you of what their experiences are. That's right. It's personal. And wouldn't it be amazing if we could have a dialogue in which I simply share my experiences and you share your experiences, and we're in an open arena around that, and it doesn't have to mean anything beyond that we're open to hearing one another without trying to convince each other of it, right? Or trying to rationalize it or understand it, that would be a very different dialogue if we didn't need to be right. There'd be a lot less arguments if we didn't need to be right.